Hi, everyone. I'm Chad Nelson. I'm a creative director here at OpenAI. We'll keep it casual, but no, this is going to be a fun talk. So in my career, I've made a lot of content: films, video games, television shows. And in all my experiences, there's been one common kind of through line, which is, how am I going to make it? How am I going to make this stuff? Ultimately, what are my creative workflows that I need? What are the tools I'm going to use? And so what happens? You start a project, and you basically look at the tool landscape that's out there, and you say, OK, what are the tools I can use? Hopefully, they're not too generalized or worse, too complicated for my project's needs. And it also doesn't help that in kind of the landscape today, these AI tools, I mean, literally new tools are coming out every single month. But kind of made us ask a question. What if you could actually develop a tool that was perfect for your individual project, your creative workflow, and not have it take months to develop? So that's something we've been thinking about here at OpenAI, and we found a project that actually helped us test this theory. Now, a few months ago, or I should say, actually it was 2 weeks ago, Native Foreign and Vertigo Films out of the UK announced a feature film called Critters. It's an animated film. And their team in London, they basically wanted to power or partner their artists, if you will, with our latest OpenAI models. And what was interesting about this, they came to us and said, well, we want everything to make sure that it's human-led. Like, we want our artists to be driving the AI tools itself and not have them kind of work the other way around, if you will. So their goals were simple. Let's start with storyboarding. Now, storyboarding is this process where you sketch out each scene of the film to ultimately visualize the entire movie. And when we sat down with their team in the beginning, they said, well, this process can typically take about a year. One of the issues with that is it takes so long that you really only have a few chances or iterations to kind of get it right. And so we thought about that, and we said, that'd be interesting. What if we could design a tool for this, very specific to storyboarding? So we took ChatGPT-5 and Codex, and we said, OK, let's design a tool that was very, very focused on storyboarding, which would allow you to go from sketches to something that's more of a high-fidelity render, and then potentially even to final frame. And we internally dubbed this project Storyboard. And to demonstrate how it works, I'd like to introduce to you my colleague, Olivia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Olivia Morgan, and I'm a solutions engineer here at OpenAI. Now, I want to use Critters as kind of the backdrop to show you this storyboard application that we built. So I'm going to show you a demo of Storyboard, and I'm going to use the persona of a storyboard artist, but you can imagine any creative field, right? Somebody in design, somebody in marketing, trying to generate an initial concept. So when I land on the storyboard page, you see this concept of projects. Now, to start a new project, I'm going to go to the upper right-hand corner, and we'll call this project today Dev Day. And for the sake of the demo, I'm going to duplicate from an existing project. Now, all this is going to do is duplicate my project setup. And I'll explain more about the project setup in a little bit. But that's essentially what's given me this population of characters, locations, and props. But you can kind of see the framework that we're starting with. On the left-hand side, we bring in some sketches and some prompts. Then we have a list of controls. Now, these are images that are fed into our edit endpoint on GPT image 1 and helps us control the fidelity of those final outputs. Now, you'll notice here that I can generate in 2 different presets. So I have kind of a turbo preset in the project setup. We have this set to generate in black and white sketches. And then we have a high fidelity preset. And so this gives us really our final renderings, if you will. So let's walk you through an example. So in the upper left-hand corner, I'm going to upload some frames, and we'll go to our swimming critter, volcano critter, and our waving critter. And you'll see when those hit the storyboard, they're here on the left-hand side. Now, I have this critter swimming with a yellow fish here, and we need to add a prompt to describe the sketch. So I'm going to jump into my notepad, and I'm just going to grab some of these prompts that I have. And we'll describe this one as a white furry critter swimming underwater as she's surrounded by bubbles floating up around her. A yellow and white fish with scales approaches. Now, I want to select the controls, right? I want that fidelity in my final output of what I want my critter to look like. So here I have a list of characters. I'm going to select this critter, actually, for our character. But if I had a rendering where I wanted to use Grandpa Critter, I could select him too. And then we move on to locations. So this critter is underwater, and this is just an image we took with an iPhone. So we'll select that underwater location, but we could also play with a desert or a forest location, or bring more locations in our project setup. Then we have this concept of props. So if I wanted this critter to be wearing sunglasses, and I'll show you this in a later generation, we could bring that in too. Now let's kick off these generations. And I'll move on to these last two images. So here, we've got some critters in front of a volcano. And I'll grab that prompt to describe this sketch. We've got two furry critters looking at a distant volcano. On the other side of a lake, there are berry bushes on the sides, and this is going to be early morning light. So again, I'm going to use that initial critter. For the location, I don't need to bring in an asset. We described it in our prompt, and we'll kick off those generations as well. And then for this last guy, I'm actually going to show you an example of bringing in a prop. And we'll describe this sketch as a white furry critter waving hello, wearing sunglasses. So you'll see in the image he's not, but we'll bring in that prop for it. So here's our first critter, and we'll bring in those props, those crystal sunglasses as a prop. So this will be what he's wearing in the final generation. All right. Now before we look at these generations, I want to take you through the project setup. So this is what was duplicated when I initially spun up the project. And when we were working with the creative team in London, they mentioned that this part of the image generation was really important, the ability to set an overall style in their storyboard. So you'll notice up here at the top, we have that style guide where we can kind of set the aesthetic description that's applied to every generation. In our case, we want the sketch we want to turn the sketch of a storyboard frame into a detailed scene, and we want to maintain the position and the composition of the initial sketch. Now for the turbo generation prompt, we just want a storyboard-style black and white marker and ink rendering, no color. And then for that high-fidelity generation prompt, this is a full-color, highly realistic movie scene, 35mm photography. Now, speaking of controls or assets, down here at the bottom is where we can manage our locations, our characters, and our props. Now, for each image that we bring in, we can add a description. For the characters, we actually added the ability for GPT-5 to generate the description for us. We were kind of playing around with these controls. So I'll show you an example. We'll bring in our yellow critter. And you'll notice very quickly, it's fed into GPT-5, and we get a short description, a small, fluffy, bright yellow critter with a round, chubby body covered in soft fur. Now again, these are all fed into the prompt for that final image generation, so both the text and those images. And this is important because that GPT Image 1 model that we have has a high input fidelity parameter that you can turn on, and you'll kind of see how this comes to play here in a second. Now, the last thing I want to touch on is this history tab. When working with the creative team in London, they mentioned that having this concept of a history tab was important. They wanted to be able to see the initial sketch, the generated images, whether or not we were referencing certain characters, props, or locations, and then which prompt went with the image that was generated. And we gave them on the right-hand corner the ability to export this all in a CSV so that they have full auditability on all of these storyboards that they're creating. Now let's go back to the storyboard frame and see what was generated. So you'll remember we had that initial sketch of the critter underwater, and we've got our black and white frames now. So we have 4 different presets because when you're working with these image models, there's a little bit of creative freedom that is to be had with these models. And so it just gives the artist the ability to choose the best rendering that fits the vision. I can confirm for download here in the bottom right-hand corner. And I want to get some participation from the audience. I'm going to look at these last 4, and you cheer for me which one you like the best. Do we like this generation? We like this generation or this generation? First one? Okay. Woo! Okay, so we got our confirmed generations. I'll go through these last 2 just very quickly. We now have also our critters in front of the volcano. So if I can get a shout out which one we like best, I'll confirm that one for download. I heard 2. And then here at the bottom, we've got an example of those generations with the glasses. So we're still waiting for the black and white sketch, but we got the full color generations. I kind of like either 2 or 4, so we're going to go with number 2. But why this is important is when you're working with storyboarding or you're generating initial sketches, a lot of times in production, you're not just working with one image. You have hundreds of images. And so the ability to do this in bulk, stage it for download, and then move it into your other creative tools is a really powerful concept. And when we were working with the creative team in London, what we found really fascinating is that they started utilizing this storyboard concept for many different aspects, including things like environmental design. So you'll see here the sketch of an initial environment and storyboard's final rendering of it, but also things like character design, where we're throwing an initial sketch of the character into storyboard, and we're using storyboard to render out all of the final details. Now, this really opened our eyes to what a tool like this could be used for in larger enterprise applications. So imagine you are an athleisure brand, and you're preparing for a seasonal launch, or you're an automotive company, and you're building a new campaign. And so that's really where storyboard comes in. It turns these initial concepts into stunning production-style shots, so you can move fast and kind of stay confident that your first sketch to final frame is exactly how you want it. And with the new Sora 2 API, we are really excited because what this means now for our storyboard tool is we can go from initial sketch to a beautiful image now to full motion. And I am so excited for you all to get your hands on this. I think what you'll find in Sora 2 is that the motion understanding, the physics, the ability to guide the details through prompts and images is truly, truly impressive. And so you can actually then go from visuals or images like this to full motion and sound like this.
Hey there, shiny friend. You like to dance, huh? You're beautiful.
So that's a little teaser of our Sora 2 API. I'm so excited for you all to get your hands on it. I'm certainly excited to continue to build this into Storyboard.
Stand by, and you... All right, one sorted. Good. Camera's rolling. And ready on the big lad.
Have the antenna tidy.
Got it.
Thank you.
All right, everyone, settle.
Rolling action!
Hi there. What's my line again?
Cut.
Oh, blast it.